admin workstation have been deployed with the required keys, admin will log in into the admin workstation VM to start the GKE on-prem deployment. Admin will modify a config YAML with the information such as vCenters, credentials, GCP key files, among many other things. To ensure proper and faultless deployment, admin will perform the check config of the config YAML as shown here. The admin then performs the preparation prior to deployment of the GKE on-prem clusters by issuing the prepare and validate config. The preparation will download another OVA and make it as a VM template. Now this template will be used as the base image for all the Kubernetes nodes, which is part of the GKE admin and user clusters as further shown in this demo. Now it's time to create the GKE on-prem cluster using the configuration file that have been validated. Note that this process would create the nodes that are part of the admin cluster and then followed by the nodes for the first user cluster. The first step in orchestration is deploying the admin cluster master. The orchestration also orchestrating the load balancer to allow the required traffic to be directed properly as being shown here. All of the nodes of the master cluster will also be deployed afterwards. The next steps in orchestration is to perform deployment of the user cluster master node, which is providing the control plane to the worker nodes part of the user cluster. And in about 22 minutes, we can see the user master cluster node was established. Afterward, the user cluster master node is fully functional, and we can see that worker nodes part of the first user cluster were deployed in parallel. While the worker nodes were being prepared for the orchestration, they're also setting up the communications required for GKE API, user cluster API, and service mesh that are part of the GKE on-prem. In about 29 minutes later, the deployment of user cluster nodes have completed, and this concludes the deployment of GKE on-prem to the HPE SimpliVity cluster. Now we are looking at the GCP console, and observe that deployed user cluster was automatically registered into the list of the cluster that is managed by this GCP account. To allow the GCP to manage GKE on-prem user cluster, I created authorization to allow the binding of the Kubernetes service account that will generate a special token. Copy this token into the GCP login to the cluster menu, and user cluster in GKE on-prem now can make use all of the services available in the GCP, including the deployment of the GCP Marketplace Kubernetes applications.